The emergency signal cut through the peaceful hum of the Galactic Council chambers like a scream in the night. Council members from dozens of different worlds stopped their conversations and turned toward the central communication hub. The holographic display flickered to life, showing a desperate face covered in blue feathers and large, frightened eyes. "Please, anyone who can hear this message," the creature said, its voice shaking with fear. "This is Speaker Thys of the Zalani homeworld. We are under attack. Our people are dying. We need help." The image showed burning cities in the background. Strange ships filled the sky, raining down destruction on the peaceful world below. The Zalani had never hurt anyone. They were healers, teachers, artists. Their planet was famous throughout the galaxy for its beautiful gardens and advanced medical technology. They had never even built weapons of war. "The Korthak Empire demands our surrender," Speaker Thys continued. "They want to make us slaves. They have already taken our outer colonies. Our defense ships cannot stop them. Please, if there is anyone out there who believes in protecting the innocent, we beg for your help." The transmission ended with the sound of explosions in the distance. The council chamber fell silent. Dozens of different alien species looked at each other with worried expressions. Everyone knew about the Korthak Empire. They were a brutal military force that had been conquering peaceful worlds for the past 50 years. They took slaves, stole resources, and destroyed anyone who tried to stop them. Counselor Vex Prime, a tall insect-like being from the hive worlds, stood up first. "We must discuss what action to take," he said in his clicking voice. "The Zalani are good people. They help anyone who asks for medical aid. They deserve our protection." Counselor Mora Ching, whose people looked like walking trees, shook her branched head sadly. "My heart goes out to them, but what can we do? The Korthak have over 200 warships in that system. Our combined fleets are spread too thin across the galaxy. By the time we gather enough ships, the Zalani will already be enslaved or dead." "The hegemony refuses to get involved," announced Counselor Zeph, speaking for one of the largest military powers in the council. "They say it would risk starting a full-scale war with the Korthak Empire. Too many of our own people would die." One by one, the council members explained why they could not help. Some were too far away. Others were already fighting their own wars. Many simply did not have strong enough military forces to challenge the Korthak Empire. The mighty fleets that had once kept peace in the galaxy were now scattered, defending their own territories from various threats. "There must be someone," Vex Prime insisted. "We cannot simply let the Zalani be destroyed." "What about the Altarians?" suggested a young counselor from the Rim worlds. "They have a strong fleet." "Already committed to defending their trade routes from pirates," came the reply. "The crystalline entities?" "They move too slowly. It would take them months to reach the Zalani system. The mechanical collective? They only fight when their own territory is threatened." The debate went on for hours. Every possible ally was discussed and dismissed. The Zalani were running out of time, and the galaxy's greatest powers seemed helpless to save them. Finally, Counselor Vex Prime mentioned a name that made several species shift uncomfortably in their seats. "What about the humans?" A strange quiet fell over the chamber. The humans were the newest members of the Galactic Council. They had only joined 5 years ago, after making first contact with a hegemony exploration ship. Most species still did not know what to make of them. Humans came from a world called Earth, and that world was terrifying to most galactic citizens. It was what scientists called a death world, a planet so dangerous that it constantly tried to kill everything living on it. The weather could change from burning heat to freezing cold in hours. Massive storms could level entire cities. The ground could shake and crack open without warning. Wild animals with teeth like knives hunted in packs. Disease and poison were everywhere. Most species that evolved on such worlds either went extinct or became too aggressive to join galactic civilization. But humans were different. They had not just survived their horrible planet, they had learned to love it. They called its deadly animals pets. They turned its violent weather into sports. They used its poisonous plants as medicine. Even more strange, humans had fought terrible wars against each other for thousands of years, then somehow learned to work together. They had built a unified government and stopped fighting their own species just in time to reach the stars. When they joined the council, humans had seemed friendly enough. They were curious about other species and eager to learn about galactic culture. They shared their art, their music, and their strange habit of keeping deadly animals as companions. But they had also brought ships that made military experts nervous. Human warships looked different from everyone else's, uglier, more brutal, designed by a species that had learned to fight on a world that never stopped trying to kill them. The humans, Moriching repeated slowly. Do we really want to ask the Deathworlders for help? They are council members, Vex Prime pointed out. They swore the same oaths we all did, to protect peaceful species from aggression. But what kind of help would they give? Asked another counselor nervously. Their planet produces warriors, not peacekeepers. What if they make things worse? Worse than total enslavement? Vex Prime asked. The Zilani are going to die or become slaves. At least the humans might give them a chance. The debate continued, but time was running out. Finally, the council voted. It was close, but they decided to send the distress call to Earth. They had no other choice. The message was transmitted across the galaxy to the human homeworld. It included all the information about the Korthak attack and the council's request for assistance. Most counselors expected no reply or perhaps a polite message explaining why humans could not help. Instead, they received a response within 6 hours. It was brief and written in the simple, direct style that humans seem to prefer. Message received. Situation understood. Réponse en route. Admiral Chen commanding Terran Defense Force will handle the matter. Estimated arrival in Zilani system 72 hours, that was all. No questions about political implications, no requests for backup or support from other council fleets, no demands for payment or territory in exchange for help, just a simple statement that they were coming. Vex Prime felt both relief and worry as he read the message. Relief that someone was finally going to help the Zilani. Worry about what handle the matter meant when it came from a species that had learned warfare on a planet that killed the weak and rewarded the strong. In the Zilani system, Speaker Thys received word that help was coming. She did not know much about humans, but she was grateful that someone had answered their call. Her people were running out of time. The Korthak fleet was preparing for their final assault. She could only hope that these mysterious Deathworlders would arrive in time, and that their help would not come at a price too terrible to pay. The galaxy held its breath and waited to see what Earth's children would do when they finally met the Korthak Empire in battle. The space around the Zilani homeworld was filled with Korthak warships. Over 200 vessels formed a tight blockade around the peaceful planet. Their black hulls reflected no light, making them look like holes cut out of the starfield itself. Each ship bristled with weapons designed for one purpose: to break the will of anyone who dared resist the Korthak Empire. On the flagship, War Commander Thek studied the tactical display with satisfaction. The Zilani had stopped trying to fight back hours ago. Their pathetic defense fleet was nothing but floating wreckage now. Soon his forces would land on the planet and begin the harvest. The bird-like creatures would make excellent slaves. Their small size and quick movements would be perfect for working in the deep mines of the outer colonies. War Commander, his communications officer called out. We are receiving a transmission from the Galactic Council. Thek's lips pulled back in a snarl, showing his sharp teeth. Tell those cowards that this system now belongs to the Korthak Empire. If they interfere, we will add their worlds to our growing territory. Sir, the message is not from the Council directly. It appears to be from one of their member species. They call themselves humans. Thek had never heard of humans, but that meant nothing. The galaxy was full of weak species that hid behind the Council's protection. What do these humans want? They are demanding that we withdraw from the system immediately. The bridge erupted in laughter. Several of Thek's officers made jokes about the stupidity of aliens who thought they could order the mighty Korthak Empire around. Thek held up a clawed hand for silence. How many ships do they have? He asked. Our sensors show 3 vessels approaching from the outer system. 3 ships. Thek laughed so hard that his subordinates stepped back nervously. 3 ships against his fleet of over 200. These humans were either insane or suicidal. Put me through to them, he ordered. I want to hear this foolishness myself. The main display flickered and showed the bridge of a human warship. Thek studied the creature standing at the center of the image. The human was smaller than a Korthak warrior, with soft-looking skin and no visible natural weapons. Its hair was gray, suggesting advanced age, yet it stood straight and confident. The human wore a dark uniform with symbols that meant nothing to Thek. I am War Commander Thek of the Korthak Empire, he announced. You will identify yourself and explain why you dare interrupt our conquest. Admiral Chen, Terran Defense Force, the human replied in a calm voice. You have 1 hour to cease all hostile actions against the Zilani and withdraw from this system. This is your only warning. Tech stared at the small creature on his screen. The human showed no fear, no recognition of the massive force arrayed against it. Either it was incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Probably stupid. You have 3 ships, Tech said slowly as if speaking to a child. I have over 200. Your weapons cannot possibly threaten my fleet. Surrender now and I will allow you to become slaves instead of space dust. Admiral Chen's expression did not change. Wrong answer. The transmission ended. Tech stood in confused silence for a moment. No one had ever spoken to him that way and lived. These humans clearly did not understand their situation. He would teach them the price of disrespecting the Korthak Empire. All ships attack formation, he commanded. Destroy the human vessels. Make it slow so the Zilani can watch what happens to those who try to help them. The Korthak fleet began moving toward the 3 human ships. On the sensors, Tech could see that the human vessels were strange-looking. They were not sleek and elegant like most galactic warships. Instead, they looked heavy and brutal, like weapons designed by a species that had learned to fight in the worst possible conditions. But ugly ships were still just ships. 3 against 200 was suicide, no matter what they looked like. War Commander! His sensor officer called out suddenly. The human ships are deploying something. Tech looked at the tactical display. Thousands of small objects were streaming out of the human vessels like seeds scattered by the wind. They were too small to be fighters or missiles. They seemed to be drifting aimlessly through space. What are those things? He demanded. Unknown, sir. They are not emitting any energy signatures. They appear to be inactive, Tech frowned. Some kind of defensive measure? Space mines, perhaps? It did not matter. His ships had shields and armor. A few small explosives would not stop the might of the Korthak Empire. Continue the attack, he ordered. Whatever those things are, they cannot protect 3 ships from our entire fleet. The Korthak warships moved closer to the humans. The strange small objects continued to drift through space, apparently harmless. Some of Tech's ships passed right through clouds of them without any effect. 30 seconds to weapons range, his tactical officer reported. Prepare to fire all weapons, Tech commanded. I want those ships turned to vapor. Sir, the sensor officer shouted suddenly. The small objects are activating. On the tactical display, thousands of tiny lights began blinking to life throughout the Korthak formation. The harmless-looking objects were moving now, attaching themselves to the hulls of his warships like parasites. What are they doing? Tech demanded. His answer came in the form of sparks and explosions across his bridge. Systems began failing throughout the ship. The lights flickered. The artificial gravity wavered. Emergency alarms started blaring. They are cutting through our hull, someone screamed. Tech looked at his tactical display and felt cold fear grip his hearts. Throughout his fleet, ships were reporting the same thing. The small objects were not weapons in any normal sense, and they were machines cutting into his vessels with incredible precision. But they were not just randomly destroying things. They were targeting specific systems, life support, communications, weapons. The machines seemed to know exactly where to cut to cause maximum damage while leaving other systems intact. Sir, we have lost weapons control. Life support is failing on decks 7 through 12. Communications array is down. Engines are offline. Similar reports flooded in from across the fleet. Ship after ship was being systematically disabled by the tiny machines. Some vessels went completely dark, their crews trapped inside metal tombs. Others found themselves crippled but still functioning, able to watch helplessly as their fleetmates suffered the same fate. Tech realized with growing horror that this was not random destruction. It was surgical, precise. The humans were disabling his fleet with the same care that a doctor might use to operate on a patient. They were keeping some ships intact while completely destroying others, and Tech could not understand the pattern. War Commander, his communications officer managed to say through the chaos. The humans are transmitting again. Admiral Chen's face appeared on the screen once more. The human looked exactly the same as before, calm, professional, completely in control. Behind him, Tech could see the bridge of his ship operating normally, as if this was just another day at work. War Commander Tech, Chen said in that same steady voice. As I mentioned, you had 1 hour to withdraw. You chose to attack instead. This is the consequence of that choice. What have you done to my ships? Tech snarled. We have disabled your ability to continue harming innocent people, Chen replied. Your weapons are offline. Your communications are disrupted. Many of your ships can no longer move under their own power. Thek looked at his tactical display. Over half his fleet was completely dead in space. The rest were damaged and struggling to maintain basic functions. His mighty armada had been reduced to helpless scrap in a matter of minutes. "This is impossible," he whispered. Admiral Chen leaned forward slightly. "War Commander, let me explain something to you. We are not here to destroy you quickly. We are here to ensure you never threaten peaceful species again. Your education is about to begin." War Commander Thek stared at his ruined fleet in disbelief. The small machines that had poured from the human ships continued their work with terrifying efficiency. They moved across the hulls of his warships like metal insects, cutting through armor that had been designed to withstand the most powerful weapons in the galaxy. But these were not weapons in any sense that Thek understood. His sensors told him they were mining drones, simple machines designed to break apart asteroids and extract valuable materials. Somehow the humans had turned peaceful mining equipment into the most effective fleet-killing weapon he had ever seen. "Sir," his tactical officer said, his voice shaking with fear, "the drones are not attacking randomly. They seem to know exactly what each system does and where to find it." Thek watched the tactical display as his ships died around him. The pattern was becoming clear now. Ships that had been most aggressive in attacking Zilani civilians were being completely disabled, their crews left alive but trapped in powerless hulks. Vessels that had hung back or shown hesitation in the assault were being partially crippled, their engines and weapons destroyed, but life support left intact. The humans were judging each ship individually and delivering precise punishment based on their actions. It was not random destruction, it was justice, cold and calculating and utterly merciless. "War Commander," his communications officer shouted, "Fleet Captain Roth is requesting permission to launch fighters." Thek looked at the display showing Roth's carrier. The massive ship was one of the few vessels that still had some weapons capability. Its fighter bays were intact and hundreds of small attack craft were ready to launch. "Do it," Thek growled. "Launch everything we have. If we cannot hurt their ships, maybe we can overwhelm their defenses with numbers." Throughout the fleet, every ship that still had functioning launch bays began releasing fighters, bombers, and assault craft. Thousands of small vessels poured out of the Korthak fleet like angry insects, swarming toward the three human ships. Thek felt a moment of hope. The humans had shown they could disable large ships with their mining drones, but point defense against small, fast-moving targets was different. No ship in the galaxy could track and destroy thousands of fighters at once. The human vessels did not even seem to react to the approaching swarm. They continued floating in space, their strange, brutal-looking hulls reflecting the light of the local star. No defensive fire reached out to meet the incoming fighters. No evasive maneuvers were attempted. "They are just sitting there," Thek's sensor officer reported with confusion. "They are not even raising shields." Perhaps the humans were overconfident. Perhaps they had used all their tricks and had nothing left. Thek watched as his fighters closed the distance to the human ships. In seconds, they would be in range to unleash devastating close-range attacks. Then the human point defense systems activated. Thek had seen many different defensive weapons in his career as a military commander. He had seen rapid-fire energy cannons that could shoot down incoming missiles. He had seen particle beams that could slice through fighter armor. He had seen smart projectiles that could track and destroy multiple targets. He had never seen anything like what the humans used. The defensive systems on the human ships did not just destroy incoming attacks, they caught them. Streams of energy reached out from the human vessels and grabbed the missiles and torpedoes fired by his fighters. But instead of destroying the weapons, the human systems redirected them. Every missile that had been fired at the human ships suddenly changed course and flew back at the fighters that had launched them. Torpedoes turned around in space and struck their own carriers. Energy blasts bounced off invisible barriers and returned to their sources with twice the original power. In less than 30 seconds, the entire Korthak fighter attack had been turned against itself. Explosions filled the space around the human ships as fighters and bombers destroyed each other with their own weapons. The few craft that survived the chaos found themselves unable to retreat as mining drones attached to their hulls and began systematically disabling their engines. "Impossible," Thek whispered. "They turned our own weapons against us." His communications officer looked up from his console with terror in his eyes. "Sir," Admiral Chen is transmitting again. The human appeared on the main screen once more. This time, Thek noticed something that chilled him to his core. Admiral Chen looked bored. The complete destruction of a massive fighter assault had not even been interesting enough to capture his full attention. War Commander Thek, Chen said in that same calm voice. I hope this demonstration has helped you understand your situation. Your fleet is now completely disabled. Your fighters have been destroyed. Your ability to harm innocent people has been removed. What do you want? Thek managed to ask. What I want is simple, Chen replied. I want you to understand that your behavior ends today. Not just for now. Not just in this system. Forever. Thek felt his blood turn cold. You cannot destroy the entire Korthak Empire. We have hundreds of fleets, thousands of ships scattered across dozens of star systems. Admiral Chen smiled for the first time, and it was not a pleasant expression. War Commander, you seem to think we are here to destroy you. That would be the easy solution, but it would not solve the real problem. Destroying you would just leave a power vacuum for the next group of bullies to fill. Then what do you intend to do with us? We are going to educate you, Chen said simply. You and every member of your species are going to learn exactly what it feels like to be on the receiving end of your own behavior. You are going to experience what you have put others through, and when that education is complete, you are going to spend the rest of your lives making up for the damage you have caused. Transport ships began emerging from the human vessels. Unlike the brutal-looking warships, these craft appeared to be designed for carrying people rather than weapons. They moved toward the disabled Korthak ships with careful precision. Sir, Thek's sensor officer reported, they are requesting permission to board. And if we refuse? Admiral Chen seemed to hear the question through the open communication channel. War Commander, your life support systems are currently functioning because we choose to allow it. Your artificial gravity works because we have not turned it off. The air you are breathing continues to circulate because our mining drones have not cut the appropriate power lines. You do not have the option to refuse. Human boarding craft attach themselves to airlocks throughout the Korthak fleet. But instead of armed soldiers, the crews that came aboard consisted of strange individuals carrying equipment that Thek did not recognize. They looked like scientists, doctors, and teachers rather than warriors. One of the humans approached Thek on his own bridge. The creature was small and elderly, wearing simple clothes and carrying what appeared to be medical scanning equipment. War Commander Thek, the human said politely. My name is Dr. Sarah Kim. I am a psychologist specializing in behavioral rehabilitation. I am here to help you understand the impact of your actions on others. I do not need your help, Thek snarled. Dr. Kim smiled sadly. I am afraid that is not your decision to make anymore. You see, War Commander, your species has been causing enormous pain and suffering throughout this region of space. The Galactic Council asked us to stop you, and we have. But simply stopping you is not enough. We need to ensure that this behavior never happens again. She activated a device that projected a holographic display in front of Thek. We are going to show you what your victims experienced. You are going to feel their fear, their desperation, their helplessness. You are going to understand exactly what you have done to innocent people. Thek looked around his bridge and saw that every member of his crew was being approached by similar human specialists. Throughout the fleet, the same scene was being repeated. The humans were not taking prisoners in any traditional sense. They were taking students. This is wrong, Thek protested. We are warriors. We fight for the glory of our empire. Dr. Kim nodded understandingly. War Commander, when we are finished with your education, you will still be warriors. But you will be fighting for something very different. You will be fighting to protect the innocent instead of preying upon them. You will be working to heal the damage you have caused rather than creating more. As the human specialists began their work throughout the Korthak fleet, Admiral Chen opened a channel to the Zilani homeworld below. Speaker This, he said to the frightened bird-like creature on his screen. This is Admiral Chen. The threat to your people has been neutralized. We will be remaining in your system for the next several months to complete our work here. Our engineering teams will also be upgrading your planetary defenses to ensure this situation never occurs again. Speaker Thais looked at the human admiral with a mixture of gratitude and bewilderment. Admiral Chen, how can we ever thank you for what you have done? Chen's expression softened slightly. Speaker Thais, protecting innocent people from those who would harm them is not something that requires thanks. It is simply what decent beings do for each other. Your people are safe now, and they will remain safe. As the human transport ships continued their work, the galaxy watched in amazement and growing unease. The humans had not simply defeated the Korthak Empire, they had captured it intact and were apparently war commander. Thek found himself strapped into a chair that looked nothing like the torture devices he had expected. The human device was comfortable, almost gentle, with soft padding and careful restraints that did not hurt him. Dr. Kim stood beside him, adjusting settings on a machine that hummed quietly. "What is this thing?" Thek demanded, though his voice lacked its usual commanding tone. The complete defeat of his fleet had shaken him more than he wanted to admit. "This is a neural interface system," Dr. Kim explained patiently. "It will allow you to experience memories and sensations that are not your own. Think of it as a very advanced teaching tool. I do not need to be taught anything by inferior species," Thek growled, but his words sounded hollow even to himself. Dr. Kim activated a holographic display that showed images of various alien species. Zilani, Altarians, hegemony citizens, dozens of others. "War Commander, over the past 20 years your fleet has attacked 47 different worlds. Your forces have enslaved over 2 million innocent beings. Today, you are going to experience what those people felt when your ships appeared in their skies." The machine activated with a soft chime. Suddenly, Thek was no longer sitting in the chair. He was standing in a beautiful garden under an alien sky. His body different, smaller, covered in blue feathers instead of scales. Panic flooded through him as he realized he was experiencing the world through the senses of a Zilani civilian. Above him, massive black ships blotted out the sun. Weapons fire rained down from the sky, destroying the peaceful buildings around him. He felt the Zilani's terror as friends and family members died in the explosions. He experienced the creature's desperate need to protect its young offspring. The crushing hopelessness as escape became impossible. The simulation lasted for hours from Thek's perspective, though Dr. Kim monitored his vitals to ensure it was only minutes in real time. He lived through the Zilani's capture, the brutal conditions in the slave camps, the slow death of hope as days turned to months with no rescue. When the simulation ended, Thek found himself back in the chair, his body shaking with emotions he had never felt before. The terror, the helplessness, the grief. They were still fresh in his mind, as real as any of his own memories. "Why did you show me that?" he whispered. "Because that Zilani was a real person," Dr. Kim said gently. Her name was This Minor. She was a teacher at the local school. She had 3 children who looked up to her. She wrote poetry in her spare time and grew the most beautiful flowers in her district. Your forces killed her children in front of her and worked her to death in the mining camps on Korthak 7. Thek stared at the human in shock. Throughout his career, he had never thought of his victims as individuals. They were just numbers, resources to be harvested for the glory of the Empire. But This Minor had been a real person with a real life, and he had destroyed it. I did not know," he said weakly. "No," Dr. Kim agreed. "You did not know because you never bothered to learn. But ignorance is not an excuse for causing suffering. Now you are going to learn about every single person your actions have harmed." The machine activated again. This time, Thek experienced life as an Altarian merchant, whose trade ship had been captured by Korthak pirates. He felt the aliens' confusion and fear as he was dragged away from his family to work in the deep mines. He experienced months of backbreaking labor, inadequate food, and constant fear of the guards' whips. After that came the perspective of a hegemony diplomat who had tried to negotiate peace with the Korthak Empire. Thek experienced the aliens' hope during the initial talks, then his horror as Korthak soldiers executed his entire delegation as an example to others who might oppose the Empire. One by one, Dr. Kim showed him the lives he had destroyed. Children separated from their parents, artists whose beautiful works were burned for fuel, scientists whose research could have helped the galaxy, cut short by Korthak brutality. Each simulation was perfectly accurate, based on testimony from survivors and recovered data from the attacked worlds. As the hours passed, Thek began to understand the true scope of what he had done. It was not just the direct victims. Every person he had killed or enslaved had friends, family members, colleagues who had been devastated by their loss. The ripple effects of his actions had touched millions of lives across dozens of worlds. "Enough," he begged after experiencing the death of a young Zilani artist. "Please, no more." Dr. Kim checked her notes. "War Commander, We have covered approximately 8% of your documented victims. We still have much work to do. I understand now, Thek said desperately. I see what I have done. I will stop. I will order my forces to cease all attacks, free all slaves. Just please, no more. I appreciate that you are beginning to understand, Dr. Kim said kindly. But understanding is only the first step. You also need to develop the emotional capacity to care about others and the practical skills to help instead of harm. She activated another program. This time, instead of experiencing terror and pain, Thek found himself in the mind of a human child learning to care for injured animals. He felt the satisfaction of nursing a wounded bird back to health, the joy of seeing it fly free again. The emotions were completely foreign to his warrior culture, but they felt somehow right. More simulations followed. He experienced the pride of a teacher watching students learn to read, the contentment of a farmer growing food to feed hungry people, the deep satisfaction of a doctor saving lives instead of taking them. Each simulation was designed to show him that there were other ways to find purpose and meaning besides conquest and domination. Meanwhile, throughout the Korthak fleet, similar scenes were playing out on every ship. Thousands of Korthak warriors were experiencing their first taste of empathy, learning to see their victims as real people rather than nameless resources. Some of the Korthak soldiers broke down completely, overwhelmed by guilt and grief for what they had done. The human specialists were prepared for this, providing counseling and support to help them process their emotions in healthy ways. Others resisted the treatment, clinging to their old beliefs about strength and conquest. For these individuals, the humans had different approaches. They were shown the ultimate fate of warrior cultures that refused to evolve: extinction, either through self-destruction or by creating so many enemies that they were eventually overwhelmed. But most of the Korthak, like Thek himself, began to genuinely change. The combination of experiencing their victims' pain and seeing alternative ways to live started to reshape their fundamental understanding of what it meant to be strong. On the planet below, human engineering teams worked alongside the Zilani to upgrade their defenses, but these were not ordinary military installations. The humans built defensive systems that were both incredibly powerful and completely non-aggressive. They could stop any attack, but they could not be used to threaten others. Orbital platforms appeared around the Zilani homeworld, equipped with technology that could disable entire fleets without killing anyone. Automated defense drones that could redirect incoming attacks back at their sources. Shield generators powerful enough to protect the entire planet from bombardment. Why are you giving us such powerful defenses? Speaker Thys asked Admiral Chen as they toured one of the new installations. Because the best way to prevent violence is to make it pointless, Chen replied. Your people will never again need to fear attack. But you will also never be tempted to use these defenses for conquest. They are designed to protect, not to threaten. As the weeks passed, word of what was happening in the Zilani system spread throughout the galaxy. The Galactic Council watched in fascination and growing concern as reports came in of the human rehabilitation program. Other aggressive species began to reconsider their own plans for expansion. If the humans could capture and reform the mighty Korthak Empire, what would they do to smaller threats? Some species pulled back from planned attacks, not wanting to attract human attention, but others saw an opportunity. With the Korthak fleet neutralized, their territory was vulnerable. Several minor powers began making plans to move into the power vacuum left behind. Admiral Chen was well aware of these developments. The human fleet had been monitoring galactic communications since their arrival, and they knew exactly who was planning to take advantage of the situation. Dr. Kim, Chen said during one of their regular briefings, how much longer do you need to complete the primary rehabilitation of the Korthak command structure? At least 6 more weeks for the senior officers, she replied. The lower ranks are progressing faster, but the leadership has more deeply ingrained behavioral patterns to overcome. Chen nodded. That should be sufficient. We may have some visitors soon who will need similar education. He looked out at the stars, where his sensors had detected 3 different fleets moving toward former Korthak territory. Each represented a species that had been waiting for an opportunity to expand their own empires. They were about to learn that the humans' definition of peacekeeping was very thorough indeed. 3 months after the human intervention began, War Commander Thek stood in the same position on his bridge where he had once commanded a fleet of conquest, but everything had changed. His ship had been completely rebuilt by human and Korthak engineers working together. Where weapons of war had once dominated every surface, now there were medical facilities, educational centers, and manufacturing bays designed to create tools for building rather than destroying. Thek himself looked different too. The arrogance and cruelty that had once defined his expression were gone, replaced by something that would have been unrecognizable to his former self: genuine concern for others. The rehabilitation process had not just taught him about empathy, it had fundamentally rewired his brain to feel it. Former war commander, Dr. Kim said as she approached him on the bridge. Over the months she had become something Thek had never expected to have: a friend. Are you ready for your new assignment? Thek nodded, though he still felt nervous about what was to come. I understand the mission, Dr. Kim. My fleet is to return to former Korthak territory and begin reparations work. We will free the remaining slaves, provide medical aid to damaged worlds, and help rebuild what we destroyed. And how do you feel about that? She asked, still monitoring his psychological progress. Frightened, Thek admitted honestly. I caused so much damage, hurt so many people. How can I possibly make up for what I have done? How can the people I enslaved ever trust me? Dr. Kim smiled sadly. Thek, the fact that you are asking those questions shows how much you have changed. The old war commander would never have cared about earning trust or making amends. You may not be able to undo all the harm you caused, but you can spend the rest of your life working to heal it. Through the bridge windows, Thek could see his new fleet preparing to depart. 200 ships that had once brought terror wherever they appeared were now equipped with medical supplies, construction equipment, and educational materials. Their crews had been through the same rehabilitation process as their commander, emerging as people dedicated to helping rather than hurting. Sir, his communications officer called out. The young Korthak had been one of the most enthusiastic students during the rehabilitation process. Admiral Chen is requesting to speak with you. The human admiral appeared on the main screen, looking exactly as calm and professional as he had during their first encounter. But now Thek understood what he had missed before, the deep sense of responsibility that drove Chen and his people. Former War Commander Thek, Chen said formally. Your fleet is cleared for departure. You have your orders and your supplies. Remember what you have learned here. Admiral Chen, Thek replied, I want to thank you for what you have done, not just for stopping us, but for showing us a better way to live. Chen's expression softened slightly. Thek, the hardest part of your journey is still ahead of you. Many of the people you will encounter will hate you for what you did to them. Some may never forgive you, no matter how hard you work to make amends. But that does not mean the work is not worth doing. I understand, Thek said. We will do whatever it takes to help heal the damage we caused. The reformed Korthak fleet departed the Zalani system, leaving behind a world that was now better protected than almost any other planet in the galaxy. As they jumped to hyperspace, Thek felt a mixture of determination and dread about the work ahead. Back in the Zalani system, Admiral Chen turned his attention to 3 new fleets that had been approaching former Korthak territory. The Vegan Supremacy, the Iron Collective, and the Stellar Dominion had all seen the power vacuum left by the Korthak defeat as an opportunity for expansion. None of them had bothered to ask what the humans might think about that. Admiral, his tactical officer reported, the 3 aggressive fleets have entered the outer reaches of former Korthak space. They are beginning to move on undefended colonies. Have they received our warnings? Chen asked. Yes, sir. All 3 fleet commanders were informed that those worlds are now under Terran protection, while rehabilitation efforts are ongoing. They have chosen to ignore our communications, Chen sighed. Some species, it seemed, needed to learn the hard way. Very well. Deploy the educational packages. Same protocol as before. The mining drones launched from the human ships, but this time they were not alone. 3 months of working with Korthak engineers had allowed the humans to improve their designs. The new drones were faster, smarter, and even more precise in their targeting. The Vegan Supremacy fleet was the first to encounter them. Admiral Sek, the fleet commander, watched in confusion as small objects surrounded his ships. He had heard rumors about what happened to the Korthak, but he had dismissed them as propaganda. No species could disable an entire fleet without firing a shot. His confusion turned to terror as his ships began shutting down around him. But unlike the Korthak encounter, this time the process was even more controlled. The humans had learned from their first intervention and refined their techniques. Within an hour, all three aggressive fleets found themselves completely helpless, their crews already being visited by human specialists carrying rehabilitation equipment. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as news of the second intervention spread. The humans had not just defended former Korthak territory, they had captured 3 more fleets and begun the same rehabilitation process. In the chambers of the Galactic Council, emergency sessions were called to discuss the implications of human actions. Some species were grateful that aggressive neighbors were being pacified. Others worried about the humans' growing influence and their terrifying ability to neutralize any military force. Counselor Vex Prime found himself in the unusual position of defending the humans to his fellow council members. They are doing exactly what we asked them to do, he pointed out. They are protecting peaceful species from aggression, but at what cost? Demanded Counselor Zeph. They are changing entire cultures, reshaping the minds of thousands of individuals. Is this not a form of conquest itself? Would you prefer they simply destroyed the aggressive fleets? Vex Prime asked. The humans are offering something no species in galactic history has ever attempted. True, lasting peace through understanding rather than fear. The debate raged for days, but it became academic when more reports arrived. The reformed Korthak fleet had reached their former territory and begun their work. Former slaves were being freed and provided with medical care. Damaged worlds were receiving aid and construction assistance. Most remarkably, the victims of Korthak aggression were slowly beginning to trust their former oppressors. It was not easy. Many freed slaves struggled to believe that their captors had truly changed. Some worlds refused to accept Korthak aid, preferring to rebuild on their own. But gradually, as the sincerity of the Korthak efforts became clear, healing began to take place. Dr. Kim traveled with the reformed fleet, continuing to provide psychological support to both the Korthak crews and their former victims. She helped establish counseling centers on liberated worlds and trained local specialists to continue the work of emotional healing. It will take generations, she reported to Admiral Chen during one of their regular communications. The trauma runs deep and trust must be rebuilt slowly. But it is happening. People are learning to see each other as individuals rather than enemies. Meanwhile, the 3 newly captured fleets were undergoing their own rehabilitation. The Vegan supremacy officers were experiencing life from the perspective of the inferior species they had planned to conquer. The Iron Collective was learning about the value of organic life they had dismissed as weakness. The Stellar Dominion was discovering that true strength came from protecting others rather than dominating them. As the months passed, a new pattern emerged across the galaxy. Aggressive species began to reconsider their plans for expansion, knowing that the humans were watching. Some reformed themselves voluntarily, choosing to follow the Terran model of strength through protection rather than conquest. Others tested the humans' resolve and found themselves captured and educated just as the Korthak had been. Within 2 years, the number of active military conflicts in the galaxy had dropped to the lowest level in recorded history, not because threats had been destroyed, but because they had been transformed into protectors. The Galactic Council faced a new reality. The humans had not conquered the galaxy in any traditional sense. They had healed it. Aggressive species still existed, but they now used their strength to help rather than harm. Former enemies worked together on reconstruction projects. Victim and oppressor learned to see each other as people. Admiral Chen stood in his quarters aboard the flagship, looking out at a galaxy that was fundamentally different from the one he had entered just 2 years before. His aide approached with the latest reports. Sir, the Council is requesting a formal meeting to discuss the establishment of permanent Terran peacekeeping protocols. They want to make your methods the official standard for dealing with interstellar aggression. Chen nodded slowly. Tell them we will consider their proposal, but make it clear that our methods are not negotiable. We will continue to protect innocent people in our own way, whether the Council approves or not. Sir, there is one more thing. We have received a message from Earth. The government is asking when you plan to return home. Chen smiled for